What if I told you there's a government experiment so disturbing it's been erased from every official record? A test that pushed 5 men past the edge of sanity and uncovered something inhuman. They thought they were creating a super soldier. What they unleashed was something far worse. This isn't just a horror story. It's a glimpse into what happens when the mind refuses to sleep. Stay awake. What you're about to hear might not let you rest again. In the late 1940s, Soviet researchers unveiled a radical new stimulant, a gas compound they believed could eliminate the need for sleep entirely. The goal? Create soldiers who never rest, never tire, and never break. To test it, they locked 5 political prisoners, men labeled enemies of the state, inside a sealed chamber. Their reward? Survive 30 sleepless days, and they'd earn their freedom. The room was prepped: books, cots, a toilet, running water, and enough dried food for a month. But more importantly, microphones and thick glass observation ports. This was before closed-circuit cameras. They had to listen. The first 5 days, calm. The subjects chatted, joked, and kept their spirits up, believing this was their chance at redemption. But soon things shifted. By day 4, their conversations grew dark. They spoke of traumas, regrets, and violence from their past. By day 5, paranoia set in. They stopped talking to each other, instead whispering to the microphones and the walls. They began accusing each other, plotting. It seemed they believed turning in their comrades might earn them favor. The researchers started to wonder, was this the gas, or just the human mind unraveling? Then came day 9. The first subject snapped. He sprinted around the chamber, screaming for hours on end, until his vocal cords tore, leaving him choking out hoarse squeals. And the others? They did nothing. No reaction, no concern. They just whispered. Eventually, more joined in. 3 of the subjects tore pages from their books, smeared them with their own feces, and pasted them over the viewing ports. Then, silence. No more screams. No more whispers. 3 days passed. The microphones picked up nothing, and yet, oxygen usage remained intensely high, as if all 5 were still engaged in strenuous exercise. On day 14, the scientists broke protocol. They used the intercom. "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor. Compliance will earn one of you immediate freedom." A moment passed. Then a calm, chilling voice replied, "We no longer wish to be freed." Panic set in behind the glass. Arguments broke out. Should they open the chamber? Eventually, they did. They flushed out the gas, replaced it with fresh air, and immediately the subjects begged for the gas to be turned back on, as if their lives depended on it. When soldiers entered, they screamed. Not just the subjects, but the soldiers too. What they found defied reality. One subject was dead, the others barely human. Food rations had gone untouched. Chunks of rotting flesh, torn from the dead subject's body, were stuffed into the drain, causing a pool of dark red liquid to collect on the floor. All 4 remaining subjects had ripped skin and muscle from their own bodies. Fingertips were worn to expose bone, not bitten, but torn with bare hands. Their rib cages were open, organs pulled outside their bodies, but still intact, still functioning. Lungs, hearts, and intestines working. They had eaten themselves piece by piece. Soldiers refused to go back in. Those who did face savage resistance. One soldier had his throat ripped out. Another, his testicles torn off. Others took their own lives after the extraction. One test subject, despite bleeding out from a ruptured spleen, fought with such force he needed 10 times the lethal dose of morphine just to slow down. Even with no blood left in his body, his heart kept beating for 2 minutes. He continued screaming, "More! More!" over and over until he fell silent. The other 3 were restrained and moved to a medical facility. 2 of them, with functioning vocal cords, begged constantly for the gas. They didn't want sedation. They didn't want surgery. They only wanted to stay awake. The most injured was prepped for organ replacement, but he was immune to anesthesia. He broke through a 4-inch leather wrist strap during prep. He finally fell unconscious under gas anesthesia and died instantly. Autopsy revealed his blood carried triple the normal oxygen level, muscles torn beyond repair, 9 bones broken from resisting sleep. The next subject couldn't speak. His throat was destroyed. He violently shook his head no when they tried to sedate him. A nurse asked, "Should we operate without anesthetic?" He nodded yes. The 6-hour surgery was brutal. He didn't flinch, didn't scream, just stared, occasionally smiling when he caught a nurse's eyes. After the surgery, he was handed a pen and pad. He scrawled one sentence: "Keep cutting." The final 2 received the same surgery. No anesthesia. They laughed through the pain. Once paralyzed, they tracked the researchers with their eyes, waiting, planning. When the paralytics wore off, they immediately fought against their restraints, demanding the gas. When asked why they'd mutilated themselves, why they wanted the gas so desperately, they answered, "I must remain awake." Fearing backlash, the military suggested euthanasia, but the lead officer, a former KGB commander, had other plans. "Put them back in." The researchers protested. They were overruled. Back in the chamber, the subjects were connected to EEG monitors. As soon as the gas was reintroduced, they stopped fighting. They began humming, twitching, blinking, anything to stay awake. Then one subject's brainwaves began flatlining, followed by brief returns to normal, then flatline again. A nurse noticed his eyes finally closed. His brain activity instantly shifted to deep sleep, then ceased completely. His heart stopped. The final subject, now the only one who could still speak, began screaming, "Seal us in! Now!" As his brainwaves flatlined, the commander gave the order. 2 subjects, 3 researchers, locked inside. One scientist snapped. He shot the commander. Then the mute subject. He turned his gun to the final man strapped to the bed and screamed, "What are you?" The subject smiled, his voice calm. "Have you forgotten so easily? We are not what you fear. We are what you used to be before you learned how to lie to yourself. And now you've opened the door. So tell me, doctor, what are you?" The scientist raised the gun, aimed for the subject's heart, and fired. As the monitor flatlined, the subject choked out 2 final words: "We sleep inside you now." This was the Russian sleep experiment, one of the most chilling stories on the internet. So, was it real, a Soviet cover-up, or just a story we tell to explain the monsters inside us? One thing's certain: there are no hard proofs of the Russian sleep experiment. No names, no documents. Just a story that refuses to die. But during those old times, the lines blurred. The Soviets, the Americans, the Japanese, each conducted real experiments. Some were darker than this story. Japan's Unit 731 dissected prisoners alive, froze limbs to study decay, infected children with plague. In America, the CIA fed LSD to civilians without consent. They tried to erase minds, reprogram thoughts, called it MK Ultra. The Soviets locked men in silent rooms for weeks, watched them lose their memories and their sanity. All of it was real. So maybe this story never happened. But when you look at what did, it doesn't seem so far-fetched, does it?